4th gen versus 3rd gen Tacoma. This is the ultimate showdown. In today's video, we're gonna break it down as much as possible. We're gonna start by showing you the tech differences between these two trucks, and then we're gonna show you guys how those tech differences stack up in the real world. After that, we're gonna interview some longtime 3rd gen Tacoma owners and get their opinions on the new 4th gen Tacoma. We're then gonna talk to Carson, who's the owner of Tacoma Lifestyle and who's daily driven this 3rd gen for almost 10 years. We're gonna see what he thinks of this all new 4th gen. And finally, we're gonna see if the new tech in the 4th gen Tacoma is really worth the upgrade. And then at the very end of the video, we're gonna tell you which one we think is better and why.
Okay, so I came from a 5th gen 4Runner, which isn't the 3rd gen Tacoma, but same powertrain, really similar vehicles. And now I've got the 4th gen Tacoma. So comparison wise, I'm honestly in love with the 4th gen Tacoma. It's 10 times better than my 4Runner ever was. The ability just to daily drive it. I can get up to freeway speeds just fine. I can off-road just fine. I put 37s on this Tacoma and it's handled it way better than my 4Runner on 35s ever handled. Honestly, I just think it's an all-around better vehicle. The tech upgrades on the inside are 10 times better. I had a 2018 4Runner, so it was especially outdated on the interior. Didn't have CarPlay, small screen, everything was like analog switches and all this older tech. And now on the 4th gen Tacoma, I have this giant screen. I have all of the drivability upgrades too with the tech, the turbo, everything like that. Everything about it has just been a huge upgrade for me. Drive a 2nd gen Tacoma. That was how I got into the Tacoma platform and love that truck, love the 4.0 V6 on that. The reason I am not the biggest fan of the 3rd gen, well, let me start with the things that I like about the 3rd gen. The 3rd gen looks amazing. I do love the looks of the 3rd gen Tacoma. Having the 6-speed is also very nice, but that is about as far as it goes. The trucks are so similar that there really isn't that much to me that would be like, oh, I would take the 3rd gen over the 2nd gen. The engine's a little bit smaller in this truck. The transmission is better, but the interior's like, the interior looks better on this. Like the 2nd gen has like that classics mid 2000s Toyota gray basic interior, but I also feel like it's more comfortable. It's a more comfortable seating position. Everything about the truck is just, and it's probably just because it's all worn in, but I just love that truck. I think everything about that truck is just so good. The 5-speed and the 6-speed, like, yes, this transmission is better, but it's still not very different. They only added 1 gear on this, so that is kind of the reason why I wouldn't pick the 3rd gen Tacoma, and all of the reasons why I would pick the 4th gen Tacoma. The 4th gen Tacoma is a completely new truck from this 3rd gen. It doesn't share anything that this 3rd gen has on it, whereas the 2nd gen, a lot of the parts that fit on a 2nd gen Tacoma fit on a 3rd gen Tacoma, or vice versa, because they are so similar. 4th gen Tacoma is an all new platform. The interior looks very modern. There are pieces of it that feel cheap, and yes, it's a lot of plastic, but I do think it looks very good. So I know a lot of people really don't like that it looks so cheap or that their interior quality has gone down, but I do think they did a good job with the interior and modernizing it. Just kind of the way that all cars have gone these days is, I feel like the quality is maybe not there, but it all looks nicer. So we'll see how it holds up. That's going to be the real test of it. But I do think it's the best interior of the 3 trucks. So a couple of things that I really love about the 4th gen is, honestly, first, the daily drivability. It feels more comfortable inside. The tech inside makes the daily drivability better, because I do daily drive this every day. The options that this truck has is a lot more comfortable and a lot more efficient in daily driving than the 5th gen 4Runner or 3rd gen Tacoma. So I daily drive this to work every day, but I also do go off-road almost every weekend and camping in it.
And one thing I've noticed, just the off-road comparison compared to my 5th gen, I actually think the powertrain and the turbo allows me to off-road this a little better as well. The 5th gen 4Runner or 3rd gen Tacoma, it just takes a lot more to get up obstacles and to really off-road the vehicle. Where the 4th gen, as soon as the turbo kicks in, it really allows you to off-road pretty easily, and it actually climbs things very easy. It pushes these 37s off-road very well, and that's something I really love. The drawback, and this is something we'll learn with time, I think, I don't know how reliable this will be as I continue to off-road it and kind of abuse the 4th gen Tacoma. It's a newer powertrain, new engine in them. The 5th gen, I was never worried. I didn't do a single piece of like maintenance on my 5th gen 4Runner because I think that engine is so bulletproof. But on the 4th gen, I'm only at 20,000 miles. Who knows what this will look like at 100,000 miles? And I don't think anyone truly knows yet. But knowing that it's a Toyota engine and Toyota's developed it, I am very optimistic of how well this engine will run and will continue to run with time. And honestly, I've had zero issues with the powertrain, with the engine, with anything on the Tacoma, honestly. I haven't had to do any maintenance work of like suspension going out or anything crazy like that, but we are still very new and early in the life of this truck, so I'm really curious to see how well it holds up to that V6 in the previous models and compare and see what really changes over time.
The engine and transmission on the 4th gen. The 4th gen Tacoma, it has an 8-speed, so like going downhill right now, this has less options for engine braking than that does. So depending on the speed, like going downhill, it's kind of frustrating because you'll drop into a lower gear and it starts climbing like super high in the RPMs. But then if you go into the next gear, it's going too fast. Whereas with the 4th gen, since you have 8 gears to choose from, you can kind of manage that speed better engine braking so you're not wasting all of your brakes going downhill. Same thing going uphill. This thing likes to gear hunt hill still, just like the 2nd gen does. Gear shifts are very rough, very slow. In the 4th gen, they're all very fast. It has 8 gears to choose from, so there's not a ton of load on each gear as it's going through the transmission. So I love that about it. I love the turbo engine, the torque that it makes, and I love that it comes in so low. It comes in at, I believe, 1700 RPM. So it really doesn't drive like a traditional turbocharged car would. Since that turbo is so small, it can spool up quick. Yes, it's an added system, and I've seen everyone's comments about how it's not gonna last because it's forced induction and blah, 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 blah. If you maintain it, and if you do the things that you have to, just like any old Tacoma, it will last. Obviously, we don't know about the engine since it is a new engine, but I am willing to bet that Toyota has put their time and effort in to make a reliable engine. And I do think 10 years down the line, maybe there will be a recall or two, just like there is with every generation of Tacoma. But I do think at the end of the 4th gen's production run, we'll look back on it and say that was a reliable car. Same way we do with this one. So I really like the 4th gen. Those are the reasons I would pick the 4th gen over the 3rd gen. Not to say the 3rd gen's a bad truck, it's just not as new as I'd like coming from a 2nd gen.
All right, now that we're back at the warehouse, let's go ahead and go over some of the tech specs between both of these trucks just to see some of the updates that Toyota has added to this all-new 4th gen Tacoma. Now, starting with engine options, the 3rd gen Tacoma came with a 2.7 liter inline 4-cylinder that was good for 159 horsepower, 180 pound-feet of torque, and the optional 3.5 liter V6, which most people are familiar with, that produced 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. The 4th gen Tacoma now only comes with a 4-cylinder engine that is a 2.4 liter turbocharged inline 4. The non-hybrid version, you can get that between 228 to 278 horsepower with 243 to 317 pound-feet of torque. But you can also option a hybrid motor onto that engine that bolts between the engine and the transmission that boosts that horsepower to 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque, which are both improvements over the previous 3.5 liter V6 on the 3rd gen. For transmission options, the 3rd gen Tacoma came with either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic. You can now get the 4th gen Tacoma with an 8-speed auto, or you can still option it with a 6-speed manual as well. For towing and payload, the 3rd gen Tacoma, you can tow up to 6,800 pounds with the V6 and the tow package, whereas in the 4th gen Tacoma, you can tow up to 6,500 pounds. That is with the non-hybrid version. With the hybrid version, that actually drops to 6,000 pounds.
Payload is $1,685 for the 3rd gen, depending on how you configured your truck. And in the 4th gen, that payload is 1,230 pounds to 1,700 pounds on the non-hybrid version and 1,700 pounds on the hybrid version.
All right, Jordan, we get it. That's the boring stuff that anyone can read online. But what about the real world measurements between these two in person? So now we've got both of these vehicles side by side. I'm gonna go through and give you some real world measurements that I don't think you can really tell from the spec sheets online and how they really apply to actually using your truck. All right, so let's start with the thing that everyone seems to comment the most about, and that is the rear passenger room in the backseat of the Tacoma. I'm sitting right now in the backseat of the 3rd gen. I'm 5'9", I'm a pretty average height guy, and the driver's seat is pushed all the way forward. You guys definitely know if you have a 3rd gen that there was not a lot of space in the backseat to begin with. That was a common thing people complained about. It's not a very comfortable vehicle for passengers, especially if they're more than 5'9", 5'10". It starts to get really uncomfortable back here. So again, I'm 5'9". This is how I fit in the back seat of the 3rd gen with the driver's seat pushed all the way forward. My head definitely touches the ceiling of the 3rd gen, and I've noticed that for years when riding in the back seat. Now, this is with that seat in front of me pushed all the way forward. Now I have lots of room. I actually have plenty of room this way, but again, trying to put your feet underneath that front seat, I feel like makes a big difference because there's nowhere for them to go without it kind of being like a trap, like a mouse trap. So definitely more space here, definitely doable, but it definitely feels a lot more compact even with that seat all the way forward. All right, so here I am again sitting in the back seat of the 3rd gen with the seat all the way back. So this is with the driver's seat as far back as it will go, the least amount of room your rear passenger will have. My knees don't quite touch the front seat, but my feet are definitely kind of crammed. What is nice about the design about the 3rd gen is down there at the bottom, there's actually a gap for your feet to go underneath the seat, and it's actually semi-comfortable, at least for someone my size. It's not that bad. Not a lot of room to move around, but overall, it's not really that bad. So I'm sitting in the back of the 4th gen now, and this is actually the thing I noticed very first. The very first time I ever got to ride in a 4th gen Tacoma, I was riding in the back seat trying to film that video, and I noticed immediately that there is almost no leg room in the 4th gen with these seats pushed all the way back. It is significant. If you thought the 3rd gen back seat was small, the 4th gen back seat definitely feels smaller. So this is with the seat all the way back, and this is definitely not doable for someone my size, someone 5'9". You could do this for a short trip, but any kind of long road trip, this is gonna be terrible. So my knees are pushed into the front seat. I'm actually pushing into it, pushing forward on it. And then the other thing that I noticed about both the 4th gen Tacoma and the 6th gen 4Runner is the space at the bottom for your feet is a little bit more short. So your feet can slide under the seat, but it's a little bit more tight and the seat's sitting on top of your feet the whole time. So a weird thing to notice, but just something to take into consideration. If you plan on having rear seat passengers, this might be something that is a problem for you. So now we've adjusted the seat to roughly what we think would be where most people would have it adjusted when they were driving. So again, this is just gonna be kind of a rough estimate, not super scientific, but with it in that position, you can see roughly how much knee room I have. And again, my toes are just underneath that little gap on this seat, but there's enough room here for me to be semi-comfortable, a little crammed for my head, but it's still doable. So this is Colby's Tacoma, and something we should make note of, he gave it to us just like this. So this seat is in the position that he drives it in normally. I drove it over here just the way it was, and this seems like an appropriate seating position for most drivers. I'm a pretty average height guy. So now I'm gonna climb in right behind it the way it is right now, and you guys can see how much legroom I have. Now, this definitely feels a little bit more claustrophobic, but it's definitely doable. It's not impossible to fit back here. I actually fit back here just fine. My feet aren't touching the seat in front of me. My knees, there's, you know, like maybe a little bit of room, but just because of the way this little flap right here is hanging down because of the way his seat is reclined, it does touch my knees just a little bit. It's doable. It's definitely less comfortable than the 3rd gen, but I don't think it's impossible. Now, we all know the Tacoma is not a good passenger vehicle, so don't expect amazing numbers here, but here are the actual measurements with the driver's seat pushed all the way forward as far as it will go. From the seat to the actual tip of the rear seat, you have exactly 16 inches of space. That means for your legs, you have 16 inches from the edge of the seat to the front of that seat. From the back of that seat all the way to the back of the rear seat, you have almost exactly 34.5 inches total space. Again, that's with that front seat as far forward as it will go. So this is your maximum amount of room. So with the front seat pushed all the way forward, we try to make this as fair as possible. You have a total of, if you really push it, 13 inches of space, I would say. Maybe 14 if you don't count the curve of the seat, but realistically it's about 13 inches of space from there to there. Let's go all the way to the back seat itself. You have 33 inches of total space there. Now to make this semi-fair, this seat is not reclined at all. It's almost a perfectly 90-degree angle right now. So most people recline that, so just something to keep in mind. Minimum amount of space with the driver's seat pushed back as far as it will go. From the seat to the back of the seat, you have exactly 8 inches of space. All right, so now with the driver's seat pushed all the way back, I would almost say that the room here is 0 as far as like effective usable space goes, but we're gonna measure it anyway, and it's about, if you're pushing into the seat, so you're creating an indent, you have 4 inches of space. Realistically, without touching, it's about 3 inches of space. So again, this is not the end of the world, but it's just something you should probably know. So now I'm gonna give you 2 really weird measurements. We're gonna measure from the floor to the ceiling, and then I'm gonna measure from the seat at the highest point to the ceiling, because that's kind of like what you're gonna be dealing with for headroom. So starting with the floor to the ceiling of the vehicle on the 3rd gen sits at 45.5 inches. Then from the seat, let's actually measure from where you're sitting, because we're measuring the headroom. And I'm gonna measure, we have a test product in here that you guys probably aren't supposed to know about just yet, but we're gonna go right past that and looking at 36.5 inches of total height for your head. Let's measure from the floor to the ceiling. Floor to ceiling, 42 inches roughly. Now, something you should probably note when looking at our measurements, this one has a sunroof, and usually when the sunroof is there, this ceiling is a little bit lower. One thing we did notice about the 4th gen though is after that initial first part, there's actually a bubble back here where your dome light is that gives you a little bit more headroom. This is actually a huge improvement from the 3rd gen, which didn't really have this, and this is much, much deeper than it was on the 3rd gen. So let's go ahead and measure that now. From where you would sit down to where your head would go to, you are looking at 37 inches of total space there. I actually did notice that although my legs are much more cramped inside the 4th gen, I have a lot more room for my head. So now we're gonna go through and show you some of the differences you're gonna notice as the driver between these 2 vehicles on the interiors. It really wouldn't be fair to call this a measurement. It's gonna be more of a comparison of what's really different about the interior between them. Right off the bat, the 4th gen is a massive tech upgrade with a lot of updates happening in here, and this definitely feels like a much more modern vehicle. If you've been inside the 3rd gen Tundra, you'll definitely recognize this. It's definitely like a miniature 3rd gen Tundra, and something Toyota has definitely done over the last 3, maybe 4 years is all of their vehicles' interiors are very similar now. They feel like they're the same car, just in different sizes with different capabilities. So for the interior here on the 4th gen, we have a lot more tech, and it definitely is a lot more up to date with a lot more comfortable usability, daily driving type features that I think really add up quite a bit. A lot of people kind of discredit this as just gizmos or little happy features, but after driving this, I think you'll definitely notice it is a significant upgrade. So let's start off with the massive infotainment center. This thing is ridiculous. It's huge. I have seen some people commenting about this, that they don't need it or they don't want it, and that's definitely true, but this thing is definitely nice. It's awesome. It's significantly bigger and better. Touchscreen, you now have wireless Apple CarPlay. It's very, very handy having this massive infotainment center. In addition to that, now we have a steering wheel with a lot more buttons, a lot more tech going on. So now instead of just your standard, kind of 4-pad button option, we actually have volume controls. We have the Siri, or I believe that's the speech to text recognition option. Then you've got an OK, an up and down, a side to side, back, call button. Now over here, we also have lane assist. We have the cruise control. We have a bunch of other features. There's a lot more tech that you can control now from the steering wheel. Now there's so much that's new in here. It's very different. So we now have trailer braking, which is awesome. Super awesome feature to have right here for those of you that tow a lot. We've also got an option for a heated steering wheel, which is going to be awesome for those of you who are in the cold. This is something that we saw people trying to upgrade all the time on the 3rd gen. Now you can get that on the 4th gen. We now have dual climate control for the driver and passenger seat for the air conditioned and heated seats. So you can turn on your heated seat for your driver or for your passenger, or the cooled seat or whatever. Super cool. The button layout is a little bit more textured, a little bit more tactile. It makes a little bit more sense. We now have 2 USB-C ports down here instead of just the 1 USB-A port that came on the 3rd gen, and you still have a wireless charging pad like you had on the 3rd gen, which is super handy. You actually also have an additional USB-C port. It's hidden right here behind your infotainment center. So a total of 3 USB-C ports up here, plus the wireless charger, which for some people, that's going to be a big deal. When you're on a long road trip, it's just nice to have the ability to charge things. Now, Toyota has also totally revamped a lot of the actual tactile, usable pieces of the vehicle. So when it comes to the actual head unit in this area, you've now got switch blanks right here behind your shift knob. I like the shift knob of this new design from the 3rd gen Gen Tundra, 4th Gen Tacoma. I like it way better. I think it's way more tactile. It works much better. So you've got this physical lever you to press to move it. We've now got an all-electric transfer case. I know that's going to be a big deal for some of you that preferred the manual transfer case option you had on certain 3rd gens. They're now all going to be electric. Down here we've got our tow haul control and our drive modes, as well as the electronic transfer case to switch into 4 low and 4 high. Now, in addition to all of that, Toyota has added a lot of little tiny things. So right here we've got kind of a grab handle for people, as well as some Molle, I would call this, which is also integrated into the doors for mounting things. Super awesome there. Moving over to this side of the vehicle, on the 3rd gen, you had only a few switch blanks. On the 4th gen, I feel like it's double. We'll need to count to confirm that, but it feels like you have double the number of total switch blank options here for the 4th gen than what you had on the 3rd gen. There's a lot more options here for mounting switches factory on your vehicle. Now, the next thing that people are definitely going to notice when you're driving is the digital gauge cluster. So the digital gauge cluster can actually be customized and controlled a little bit more than you could ever do on the 3rd gen, which is just analog. And you have a lot of options. You can actually choose the way it looks. You can choose what's being displayed. You've got a lot more you can visualize right there on that display now, instead of what you had before on that outdated dinosaur 3rd gen. 3rd gen, guys, this is going to be what convinces you to switch. So if you had a 3rd gen, you know that the way the seat actually sits is not great on your legs and your knees. That area right behind your knees, it wasn't a great angle right from the factory on the 3rd gen. So you might be familiar with products like the seat jackers from Desert Does It, which have been very popular for years. So I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. When you're sitting inside the Tacoma on the 3rd gen, you can't adjust this angle right here of the seat. Your seats were fully manual. So now on the 4th gen, whereas on the 3rd gen, you had to manually move the seat back and forth and you could recline it. Everything on the 4th gen now is all electronic and powered. We now have the option to go forward, backward, we can recline, we have a lumbar support option right here, and then we also have this option right here, which was on the 5th gen 4Runner, and it was never on the 3rd gen Tacoma, which a lot of people complained about. So for long road trips, if you want to rest your legs without them having to be on the ground and have this support your legs a little bit more, you can tilt this up. This is why we would sell so many seat jackers over the years, was because in the 3rd gen you couldn't do that and the angle wasn't super great. Now if you want to be more on your toes while you're sitting here, you can recline this angle so the seat itself is now sitting more that way instead of sitting up. So you have the ability to move this around. It seems like a stupid thing to point out, but if you've been on a long road trip where you've done a lot of driving in your 3rd gen, you know what I'm talking about. Now, I know you 3rd gen owners are not gonna like me for saying this. I never really liked the seats in the 3rd gen Tacoma. I like the seats in the 2nd gen Tacoma, and I like the driver and passenger seat in the 4th gen better. So I don't hate the 3rd gen. I actually think it's my favorite of all 3 trucks, but the seats were not great. And the manual part of the seats, I didn't mind, but you just didn't have a lot of control. There's not a lot of forward and back you can do here. You can recline the seat back, you know, manually, which I still like the manual controls personally, but this was just a big thing for a lot of people, I think, on long road trips. It's really annoying having the seat at the angle that it comes at factory on the 3rd gen, and your legs are just kind of like, there's nowhere for them to rest. You're kind of on your toes the whole time. Tech on the 3rd gen. The 3rd gen is not really that outdated in my opinion, but it is somewhat like the 5th gen, where it definitely feels old when you get inside one. Maybe a little bit like a 2010 era kind of interior thing going on here. So a lot of chrome, you had a lot of chrome accents on things. And then Carson's right here is a 2017 TRD Pro, and it does not have a wireless Apple CarPlay or any Apple CarPlay for that matter. From what I understand, there's nothing on here. And we know that because this has the CD player here at the top. So even in 2017, they were still doing the CD player. There's some newer ones now that have the larger screen and a little bit better head unit, but still semi-small head unit. It definitely feels kind of like, you know, a 2000s, mid-2000s, 2010 era vehicle when you look at the tech on the inside. When it comes to the usability factor for the tech, again, you did not have wireless Apple CarPlay, which is now an option on the 4th gen, but you had one USB-A port down here. And if you did have Apple CarPlay in the newer models, which I believe is, you know, late end of production of the 3rd gen, then you had to be the person plugged into this one USB-A port. So if you're on a long road trip, this means you and your passenger are fighting over who gets to play the music or have the directions pulled up. You also had that small screen, which wasn't super great in the daytime when it was bright outside. It was a little hard to see. With your headlights totally turned off and no DRLs, it was okay, but still not quite as good as you get in the 4th gen. There were no other USB outlets on the inside unless you added something like a dash mount here. So we've got a dash mount here that adds 2 USB-A ports right there. Now you did have a cigarette adapter, which was nice, and you did have a wireless charger for your phone, which was a nice feature people with the 4Runner never got in the 5th gen. So definitely an awesome feature there. Everything else is pretty basic, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Now on the 3rd gen, for certain trims like the TRD Pro and the TRD Off-Road that were manual transmissions, you could get the option for a manual transfer case. However, on this is a 2017 TRD Pro. We have the electric transfer case down here that was found on most 3rd gen Tacomas that you'll see out there today. So that's not too different from what you'll see now on the 4th gen. Now on the 3rd gen Tacoma, your package options were pretty straightforward. You could get the access cab or the double cab. You could get the 5-foot bed or the 6-foot bed, but some of those combinations were trim specific. Now on the 4th gen Tacoma, they've changed it up just a little bit. So now instead of having an access cab, we have what's called an extra cab, which is basically just what the access cab was, except now you have no rear seats at all. Now you can also get the double cab, which is what we have here, which is the same thing we have on the 3rd gen. Now your bed options stayed exactly the same. You could get a 5-foot or a 6-foot bed. Of course, the combination there is going to be trim specific. So you got a truck, we got to talk about the truck bed. Both the 3rd gen and the 4th gen came with this little feature right here, where it's kind of an assisted back hatch. It's the same on both of them for the tailgate itself. Now we're gonna measure this on the inside. You guys could read this online, but that's no fun because we want to talk about the real world use cases. So just looking at the two of them, the 4th gen does look bigger and deeper to me. So we're gonna find out right now if that's actually the case. So total depth on the 5-foot bed on the 3rd gen shows exactly 5 feet, 60 inches deep. Now Colby's 4th gen here has a deck system in it, which is awesome if you haven't seen these. It makes life a little bit easier, so we've got those on the side if you want to check them out, but it's not going to be a perfect comparison. He's also got bed channel stiffeners, but we're going to do the best we can. So from the back of the truck bed, total depth, we had exactly 5 foot on the 5-foot bed. It looks like it's exactly the same, exactly 5 feet. So Toyota wasn't lying. It's exactly a 5-foot bed, which is good. Now we're going to measure the widest point, which is going to be back here. Get that off. The widest point right here is going to be 53 inches total space width there. Something I do want to point out is on the 4th gen, the space width-wise isn't being taken up as much. On the 3rd gen, you have these little indents that kind of inch into your space. 4th gen's a little bit more flat. So let's measure the width here. We're looking at 57 inches of width here. Again, that's not going to be a perfect example because, right, we're not measuring the bottom, but I will tell you that it's pretty straight up and down on the 4th gen. So now I'm gonna measure the bed walls in height. Not gonna matter for most people, but I'm curious, so let's find out. From the floor of the truck bed to the top, we're looking at exactly 19 inches here of height to your bed. I'm gonna do it right here from where his bed channel stiffener is, because that's kind of the best I can do. And then we are looking at roughly 21 inches of total height overall. So maybe a couple inches taller than on the 3rd gen, which might be nice for, you know, if you're putting mulch in here or something, you've got a little bit more depth there to your overall bed you can put things in. Now, just like you would expect, even the bed on the 4th gen has a little bit of a tech update. So now up there on the back, we actually have where the 3rd brake light is. The 3rd brake light is way bigger. And now you have a bed light, 2 bed lights up there that are much, much brighter than any option you had on the 3rd gen. Nice LEDs. And then this right here is actually a Dial Dynamics rock light that Colby has just installed in here. So that's not factory, but those lights up there are, so you do have bed lights now on the 4th gen, and this is a sport. So you do have that option on the 4th gen, which is definitely nice. So the question I know you guys are all asking, how big, how ridiculously big can you go on tires? That's gonna be one of the big differences between the 3rd gen and the 4th gen over there. So this is Carson's 3rd gen right here, and we are rocking 17-inch rims, and then let's see this tire size that he's got on here right now. I believe, yep, 285 70/17. So that is the tire size. I think most people are probably running their Tacoma unless you start doing a lot of cutting. You get some spacers, you got some negative offset, but most of the time when we see a 3rd gen Tacoma, it's usually on 285 70/17. That's kind of like the sweet spot for the 3rd gen. If you go any bigger than this, you got some problems. You got some cutting to do. You need more lift, you need more clearance. You know, it just becomes a little bit more complicated. Now, for pretty much everybody except for our friends in the Hawaiian Islands who want to rock the really small tires with a huge lift, the 4th gen is going to be better and easier to work with because it is so much easier to fit bigger tires. This is a consistent thing that we have noticed on the 3rd Gen Tundra, the 4th Gen Tacoma, and the 6th Gen 4Runner. Toyota really listened to what people were doing. I think they saw how many people were mounting the bigger tires, and they definitely took that into consideration with the new design. So Colby right here is actually rocking 37s. So these are 17-inch rim, 37 by 12.5. So much bigger, and it's way easier to fit these and make them actually fit on the 4th Gen than it would ever have been on the 3rd Gen. Definitely an improvement here, and I don't think this one's even close. The 4th Gen is the winner for mounting larger tires. Really quickly, it is worth noting too that the 4th Gen handles the bigger tires much better. The new powertrain, that turbo engine with the 8-speed transmission, much better than it was on the 3rd Gen with these bigger tires. So let's talk about approach, departure, and breakover angle. This is gonna be a little bit weird for us to compare because we have a TRD Pro and a TRD Sport, and they're on very big tires. They're on different tires that were not stock. So to make this as fair as possible, we're going to compare the stock TRD Pro to the stock TRD Pro. So to make sure that I don't mess this up completely, I'm gonna read them so you guys don't annihilate me in the comments. So starting with the 3rd Gen stock TRD Pro, you had a 32-degree approach angle. For departure angle, it was 23.5 degrees, and then your breakover angle is 21 degrees. Now, for the 4th Gen TRD Pro, you have a 36.4 degree approach angle. For departure, you have a 24.7 degree departure angle. And then for breakover, you're sitting at 26 degrees. So all of those numbers are significantly larger on the 4th Gen when you compare them side by side. So in the long run, the 4th Gen does have a slight advantage when it comes to breakover, approach, and departure angle. And for those of you who off-road or do any kind of crawling, that plus the ability to mount bigger tires, that might be a big bonus for you. Now, one thing we just want to make a quick note of that we think you should know, we've seen the comments, we've seen people saying and complaining the 4th Gen is smaller on the inside, the 6th Gen is smaller than the 5th Gen 4Runner. Yes, it is smaller. We just measured it. It's definitely slightly smaller, and you definitely notice it. But there are reasons for this. Something that I don't think a lot of people think about are all of the new regulations for airbags and compliance issues. The government makes new rules. All of these automakers are forced to comply, so Toyota doesn't really have a choice other than to meet the new standards, meet the new regulations. Now, because of all that updated safety and equipment that they're putting on the inside, the new airbags, everything like that, yes, the interior is going to be slightly smaller. You're gonna notice that claustrophobia just a little bit. So overall, we think they've done a really good job. It's just a fact of life. Yes, it's slightly smaller. There's slightly less room, but overall, most people probably won't really notice a difference. So the next thing that everyone seems to be somewhat kind of up in arms about is the powertrain on the new 4th Gen, especially 3rd Gen owners that love that bulletproof V6. Yes, it's a 4-cylinder turbo with an option for a 4-cylinder hybrid. A lot of people right now are saying that's not gonna be reliable. You can't trust it. Why would Toyota go to a turbo or a 4-cylinder? Again, something that I think you need to take into consideration is that Toyota has to stay compliant with government regulations. There are a lot of things right now regarding emissions and size and weight ratios that are forcing automakers to make smaller, lighter vehicles that are more emission compliant. Another thing I really think you should consider is how long Toyota has actually already been making hybrid vehicles, how long they've already been making 4-cylinder vehicles, how long they've already been making hybrid 4-cylinder turbo vehicles for a long time. And those vehicles are still on the road today. So this setup is not really anything new for Toyota. They've done it before. Do I know for a fact that it's going to perform like the V6 on the 3rd Gen did? No, but I trust Toyota, and I don't think they've ever really done anything wrong that I know of. They haven't produced anything that doesn't perform for a very long time. So I think overall, maybe try and drive one of these and let's see how it performs before you hate on it. All I'm saying is back in the 90s, everyone was all about the naturally aspirated Supra, and then they came out with a turbo, and go look at which ones are expensive now and worth a bunch of money. So I'm just saying, I think people are gonna see this same thing happen with the 4th Gen, where at first they think, yeah, the naturally aspirated V6 that Toyota's done forever on the 4Runner, the 3rd Gen is better. We'll see.
What's up, guys? My name is Carson. I'm one of the founders of Tacoma Lifestyle, along with my brother Connor, who more oversees the 4Runner side. He has the 5th Gen, and this is my beautiful 3rd Gen Tacoma behind me. This is my baby. I grew up in a Toyota family, but got this when I was first newlywed with my wife. It's a 2017 Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, and I think I bought this at out the door $35,000 back when TRD Pros were a lot cheaper. But that was kind of expensive then. I think with taxes out the door, I was actually probably around 40, but at the time that was pretty pricey. pricey, but this is my baby. It's never had one issue, just common, normal maintenance. We have beat it up because it's come like a big company car now. And so everyone takes it out off-roading all the time. It has a lot of weight on it and it has had 0 problems this far.
My name is Boston. I have worked at Tacoma Lifestyle for a little under a year now. Right now I work in customer service, responding to at least one of the guys responding to you. I own this 3rd gen Tacoma back here. I've owned it since 2020. Yeah, I've loved it. Put every mile on there. I'm at like close to, I'm like 300 miles away from 100,000 miles on this thing. Been awesome. The only problem it's ever given me is problems that I've given it. It was owned by one owner before we got it, but they only put like maybe 1,000 miles on it, and then for whatever reason brought it back. And I'm kind of grateful because we did bring it into my family at like 1,000 miles. Previously it was my dad's, and then I bought it off of him, and I've been able to do everything that I've done to it. But yeah, I've put basically 99,000 miles on this thing, and it's just run like a beauty.
What do I love most about my 3rd gen, and you know, if there's anything I wish they would have changed? So honestly, my 3rd gen has been amazing. Like obviously everyone kind of knows there's some gear hunting with that transmission, and like going up hills, or if you're on highways, you know, it's constantly kind of chasing the gear. I kind of overlooked a lot of that stuff because there's been no issues. So I'd rather have that, have a little bit of gear chasing, and have 0 issues. So it's been amazing so far. The only thing I wish they would have changed, at the time it was a little behind, but I was okay with it. Also, obviously, like the tech features, they happened to come out with the Apple CarPlay the year after I got mine. I wish I had Apple CarPlay, obviously, it's really nice to have. But a lot of the interior tech was a little outdated. But you know, when you're not having any issues and a lot of things are manual and was working well, I was able to look past it and it was totally fine. The only thing I wish they would have done, yeah, was obviously upgrade that, which in the 4th gen, they completely redid the entire interior, put a huge screen in there, better sound system, checked all the boxes, so it's a lot easier on the road. And also just driving in Colby's 4th gen here, that gear hunting is officially gone. So everything that was bugging me that I didn't like was completely fixed in the 4th gen.
What I love most, honestly, probably the reliability. I'm a college student, so I don't really make crazy amount of money because I also have to pay for school and all that stuff. And obviously I have all this stuff on there that's taken a long time to put on, but definitely the reliability. Yeah, like I said before, the only problems that it's given me is problems that I've given it. There was like one time I did an oil change, accidentally drained the transmission fluid, and I had to figure that out somehow. But that was all me. Other than that, 0 problem whatsoever. So it's run awesome. And yeah, just the ability to get it anywhere I want to. I've been able to do so many different trails out here in Moab, Uintas, and yeah, I've had 0 worry about where I've gone. So
I think it's just going to be, you know, the test of time to see if there are any issues, and have, you know, with the transmission and the new engine and all the tech, because Toyota typically, everyone knows, you're not going to get this crazy techy car. It was very raw. But I mean, I might get hate for saying this. I don't really care what anyone says. I enjoy a big screen, and I enjoy Apple CarPlay, and I enjoy a fast, zippy engine. So, you know, I know that you got to find that balance of having a good Toyota that just goes forever, but also it's nice having those bells and whistles in your car. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted them to fix, and they did it. So we'll see how long it lasts. It's a Toyota. The warranties are amazing. I don't see it being an issue at all. I mean, they've made 4-cylinder turbos for a long time. This isn't anything new Toyota's done. So I don't suspect it being any sort of issue. Aesthetically, I really like the 4th gen. I think it looks really good. The trim's amazing. The interior's beautiful.
Probably what most people hate about it, probably the gas mileage, what cost me the most on this thing. Tweaked some things here and there. I've been able to, I guess, up that a little bit. Still not great, but definitely just the gas mileage. Other than that, yeah, it's been comfortable. It's been a nice car to have. You know, it's kind of tough to judge a car, especially when it's like the 1st generation. When I first saw it, I definitely thought it was just kind of like a mini Tundra. That's what a lot of people have said. So didn't really like the look, but the 4th gen that we have, just what we've done to it, like looking at it, I've definitely come to love it. And I did get to drive it once. It's definitely a lot smoother than, let's say, like the 3rd gen for like a daily driver or anything like that. Yeah, I definitely love it now. When it first came out, didn't really like it too much, but it's grown on me.
When Colby first came and pulled up in his 4th gen, I was jaw dropped. I'm like, that is beautiful. It looks really good, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. And I honestly just kind of taking the middle ground approach. I really love the 3rd gen, and I really love the 4th gen. I love both. It just kind of depends what you're going for. Some people don't want that tech, some people do. So I think it's kind of a preference difference on the looks of it too, what you like better looks wise.
What I like about the 4th gen over my 3rd gen is probably straight from stock. You can fit bigger tires. Mine, I've put 33s on there, and kind of my fault. I put like an offset on there, spacers. I've had to do like a Viper cut, and then I have to do a body mount chop here pretty soon. But on the 4th gen, pretty sure it comes with stock 33s, or you can put 33s on there, or I think 35s, I'm not sure. All I know is you can put bigger tires on their stock and not have to worry about rubbing. Definitely wish the 3rd gens have that, but not complaining. So
something when we just did on 4Runner Lifestyle, my brother Connor did a 6th versus 5th gen 4Runner comparison, and I really like how he said just get in the car and drive it. And I'm going to say that about the 4th gen as well, like just get in the car and drive it before you hate, because there's nothing to really hate about it. It's fast, it's punchy, the interior is beautiful. Also, Colby's running 37s on that thing, and he was towing a trailer down to P&W for Overland Expo, and he had no issue. I really don't think the 3rd gen, unless it was re-geared, could get on 37s and pull a trailer full of product to Portland or the P&W area from our warehouse in Orem, Utah. So you can't really argue that. It's great. And we'll see if it, for all you Toyota enthusiasts that just love raw, we'll see what happens with the tech, and we'll see if it has any issues. I really don't think it will.
what I like about my 3rd gen over the 4th gen, that's tough. Definitely have had more experience in the 3rd gen, obviously. Kind of like what I said before, just the reliability. I don't really know, no one really knows about the 4th gen and its reliability yet. Not that I have any doubts for it, but there's always those little things. Like I said, I don't have to worry about replacing major parts or anything like that, and I haven't had to, which is honestly super nice. Actually, I will say the back seat, I have sat in the back seat of the 4th gen. It's a little bit smaller. It's not crazy difference, but you can kind of tell back seats a little better than the 4th gen.
All right, something that is worth to note though with the 4th gen Tacoma, you know, I see comments online, a lot of people are complaining about the legroom and how it feels more condensed and smaller in there. But there's something to note in Toyota's defense. They are a mid-size truck. They are not a full-size truck like the Tundra and the F-150 where they have more room to play with. They still have to play in the realms of legally being a mid-size truck. So there are new EP and new regulations with airbags and these vehicles in the mid-size truck that they can't possibly fit all the room of all these new items and also giving more legroom. So I don't think people realize that Toyota's not, they're listening, and they're not just coming in saying, hey, we're gonna make the legroom smaller just to piss everyone off. No, there's actually regulatory reasons why, and there's airbags and more things that are added into cars with tech that the government is regulating that they now have to put in that car without making the car bigger than a mid-size truck. Because obviously that's what we love about Tacomas, is they're a mid-size truck. They're more nimble on the trails. They're not so big. You can park better, you can daily drive them better. So just to keep that in mind.
If I were to have one or the other stock, I'd probably have maybe the 4th gen. The look is grown on me already, but I feel like it has more ground clearance, at least it looks like it, and the tires are a little bit bigger, and so I feel like right off the bat you can maybe do more trails with the 4th gen than the 3rd gen. Yeah, love the 3rd gen still, but I'd probably have a 4th gen.
Something that the 3rd gen has done better, going back on the test of time, I'm not really sure, like we'll see, but the 3rd gen has just had 0 issues. So there is that side, and I see the argument of people saying like, why fix it when it wasn't broken at all? Like my 3rd gen, we've had 0 issues with it. There's little to no recalls or lemons. They've been just bulletproof, and that transmission, yeah, gear hunt's a little slower, but it's had no issue, which is the Toyota way. They don't have huge crazy bells and whistles, but you're never going to be in the shop with your car, and that's what's great about it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily, I guess we'll see if the 4th gen's like that. I suspect it will, because Toyotas, that's how they've always been with all their vehicles.
If I were to change one thing, I guess the way they designed the 4th gen from stock, I would say I'd probably keep it like a 6-cylinder, make it higher. Turbo is awesome, but definitely like more cylinders in there.
Also, with the 4-cylinder engine, a lot of people are mad that they went away with the 6-cylinder. But when you look at the spec sheet, it is better on with gas mileage, it's better with torque, with horsepower, everything's better. So I don't think we can complain about the 4-cylinder when on on the sheet, it's better. I mean, the transmission is better, it's faster, it outperforms the 6-cylinder. So I think that's really important to remember as well, is that it's kind of hard when everyone's mad that the Tacoma doesn't have more tech and it doesn't have this and the engine's slow, and then they do all that and now everyone's saying, no, we don't want all this tech and we don't want it to be faster. So it's something to note that they have to keep up, and there's other trucks in the market that have come out with some pretty aggressive specs, and the engines are fast, and you know, they have the big screens, and you know, there are the few people that are raw and they don't want that, but honestly, majority, if Toyota wants to stay competitive, they have to implement these new things. And I love a big screen. I like heated seats. I like that kind of stuff. I have a wife and kids and they do too.
If things are, I guess, for the 4th gen in 15 years, I feel like people would look back at it, if all goes well, I guess the change that they did make with the engine, and if it is more reliable, I guess just more reliable, then yeah, I feel like it would be pretty well known for that, just like the 3rd gen is for its reliability now. I feel like Toyota's, I guess, really good at just reliability in general. So
something that is really nice about the 3rd gen right now, Tacoma, is the aftermarket support. So obviously this car has been around since 2016. So there are a lot of options to deck it out if you plan to modify your truck. We're getting like more heavy into the 4th gen. There's getting more and more every year, but it's still new. So we don't yet have access to all the parts to support aftermarket. It's getting better by the day. But I will say, if you love to mod your vehicle and that is what you're going into this for, the 3rd gen is definitely a better choice because all the aftermarket support is here right now.
3rd gen having a 6-speed and a 4th gen having an 8-speed. I feel like there's definitely, I guess, its uses, maybe for if you're like daily driving, towing, whatever. I don't really know, I guess, too much personally how much that would make a difference, but I feel like having the 8-speed as far as like a daily driver definitely helps. I don't really know about off-roading, but definitely a daily driver, I think it'll have its uses in the 4th gen.
A lot of people are just making this argument of like, you have to choose a 3rd gen or a 4th gen, and that's the competition between the two. And I think it's important to note that these are both Toyota Tacomas. Like they made 2 million of the 3rd gen. They lasted from 2016 to 2023, and there were 2 million or so plus units built. So the 3rd gen is not going anywhere. It's still very much here, and you know, it's a absolutely amazing choice. It just comes down to preference of what you like better. Some people like that old, slower manual feel, and that's why there's 1st gens around, and some people want the new tech, and they have, you know, their spouse might be in the passenger seat and they want dual climate, and that's okay. So just want to note that they are Toyotas, they're both Tacomas. We're all on the same team. Play nice, everyone. Everyone has their own preference of what they like better. I'm kind of the middle ground because I have a 3rd gen, but Colby here has a 4th gen, and I've absolutely loved it. So they are both amazing, and you just got to pick what's best for you. And I honestly don't think one is just way better than the other.
So at the end of the day, which of these Tacomas is better? Well, it's neither. It's my late 2nd gen Tacoma. But if you had to choose between these two trucks, which one is best? Ultimately, it depends on what you value most. If you like the proven reliability, parts availability, and the tried and true V6, the 3rd gen is the one for you. The 3rd gen has been in production forever. This V6 is bulletproof, plus everyone knows how to work on these trucks. So for reliability and parts availability, the 3rd gen is the obvious winner. But if you like the daily drivability, the extra power, the extra torque, and the updated interior of these new trucks, the 4th gen is going to be the one for you. When it comes to tech, there really is no competition here. The interior of the 4th gen has so many tech features, and this new engine and transmission are so much better than the previous models that it's going to drive significantly better for you every day. For off-roading and overlanding, many of you still want to stick with the 3rd gen platform just because of that reliability and all of those extra parts that you're able to find. But in the future, depending on how this engine goes, the 4th gen may be the one to get just because of the ability to fit larger tires and the engine's ability to turn those larger tires easier than any previous model. The 4th gen also has a much more powerful hybrid option, which we haven't experienced yet, but we could see that making a huge difference with bigger tires down the road. So which one should you buy? I'm gonna have to go with the 4th gen Tacoma. The 3rd gen Tacoma just isn't different enough from the 2nd gen to make a difference for me, and the 4th gen Tacoma with the all new tech and interior and this new powertrain, it's just a way better option for me as a 2nd gen owner. I love how this new 4th gen Tacoma gives you the ability to fit larger tires with very minimal modification. I think it drives better than any other previous Tacoma. I think the interior is more comfortable and better looking than any other previous Tacoma. So when it comes to that decision for me, it's got to be the 4th gen. At the end of the day, which one of these that you choose is going to depend on your lifestyle. lifestyle. But no matter which generation of Tacoma you have, we have parts for all of them on our website, tacomalifestyle.com. Make sure to let us know what we got right, what we got wrong in the comment section, and leave us a like and subscribe so you can catch us on our next video. If you guys liked anything on either of these trucks, like these Morimoto headlights or these Alpharex headlights, you can find links in the description to both of those products. As always, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.